Hold on tight. DMV. What you'll see today is non-refundable. Imagine this. A human tank that San Francisco gave away for nothing. How did he wreck the Giants' offense and make Saquon cry? Spoiler. Washington allowed 30 pure yards to the RBS, but that's only 20% of the story. Now, in the shadows, a versatile ghost that Cliff Kingsbury hides in formations. 7 receptions, 77 yards, a rushing TD. And dirty secrets that will implode Philly. The price? LESS in a second rounder. Ha! But here's the main course. A rookie QB who hates winning. His statements after the win. Careless. What kind of monster criticizes their first W? One with Brady's DNA in Peyton's tongue. This isn't a rebuild. It's a tsunami in the NFC East. Are you going to miss how we destroyed Jordan? Love on Thursday? Subscribe before the algorithm buries this video. Like now or live with regret. When Adam Peters signed Javon Kinlaw for 3 years and $45 million with $30 million guaranteed, the reaction was mixed at best. Critics immediately pointed to his injury history during his time with the San Francisco 49ers. Kinlaw had missed practically the entire 2021 season due to a knee injury requiring multiple surgeries. In 2022 and 2023, his appearances were limited and his impact questionable. But Peters saw something other general managers couldn't identify. It wasn't just the raw talent Kinlaw had shown when healthy, but the opportunity to rehabilitate a player with everything to prove and nothing to lose. The contract, though significant, was not prohibited by the current market standards for defensive tackles, and the structure allowed some protection. If injuries returned, the reality is Washington desperately needed to improve its run defense. The 2024 season had been an absolute disaster in that regard, allowing the third most rushing yards in the entire NFL. Opposing teams literally built their game plans around exploiting that fundamental weakness. The Giants, specifically, had run for 293 combined yards in their 2 matchups the previous season. What happened on Sunday against the Giants wasn't just a good individual performance. It was a complete transformation of the Commanders' defensive identity. Kinlaw didn't just play well. He dominated every aspect of his position in a way we hadn't seen in Washington in years. The stats only tell part of the story. 2 tackles for loss, 2 run stops, 2 pressures, a quarterback hit, a hurry, and a defensive run stop grade of 86.9. But behind those numbers lies a deeper narrative about how one player can completely change the functioning of a defensive unit. Kinlaw operated as the central anchor that allowed the rest of the defensive line to function optimally. His ability to consistently occupy double blockers freed Darren Payne and Dorrance Armstrong to wreak havoc in the Giants' offensive backfield. This isn't a coincidence. It's the direct result of having a defensive tackle that commands constant respect from opposing offensive line. Sunday's defensive numbers against the run were absolutely ridiculous when compared to recent history. The Giants were limited to only 74 total rushing yards, and of those, 44 came directly from Russell Wilson escaping pass rush pressure. That means traditional runner Tyrone Tracy Jr., Cam Skatebo, and Devin Singletary combined for just 30 yards all game. To put this in perspective, in the 2 games against the Giants in 2024, Washington allowed an average of 147 rushing yards per game. On Sunday, they allowed effectively 30 yards to real running backs. That's an 80% improvement in run stop efficiency, which is practically impossible to achieve without a fundamental change in personnel and execution. But Kinlaw's dominance didn't stop at halting the run. His impact on the pass rush was equally impressive, although the official stats don't fully reflect it. Washington generated 22 pressures on 45 pass attempts by Russell Wilson, a pressure rate of 49%. Armstrong recorded a career-high 9 pressures, directly benefiting from the attention Kinlaw attracted inside. What makes this performance so significant isn't just Kinlaw's individual performance, but how his presence allows Dan Quinn to implement his complete defensive philosophy. Quinn hails from coordinating defenses in Dallas that specialized in pressuring the quarterback with 4 rushers, freeing up the rest of the defense for aggressive coverage. Without an effective interior pass rush, that philosophy is impossible to execute. Quarterbacks have clean pocket time, can make pre-snap adjustments, and exploit aggressive coverages with precise timing routes. But when you have Kinlaw collapse in the pocket from within while Armstrong and others pressure from the edges, quarterbacks have no escape. The result was evident in Russell Wilson's performance. Despite being a mobile quarterback experienced at handling pressure, Wilson never found a rhythm during the game. His 44 rushing yards were not the result of successful design plays but desperate scrambles to avoid sacks. That's exactly the difference between effective pressure and cosmetic pressure. Kinlaw can maintain this level of performance all season. The implications for the NFC East are enormous. The Dallas Cowboys have had consistent problems with their offensive line, especially in interior protection. The Philadelphia Eagles heavily rely on Jalen Hurts running the ball to complement their offense. Even the New York Giants, who already experienced Kinlaw's dominance firsthand, will have to completely replan their offensive strategy for the remaining. But beyond divisional rivals, this defensive transformation positions Washington as a legitimate contender throughout the NFC. Teams like Minnesota, Green Bay, and San Francisco, all offenses that depend on establishing the run early, will have to face a defense completely different from what they saw on film in past seasons. Ability to consistently stop the run also allows for more flexibility in third conversion situations. When teams can't establish an effective ground game, they become predictable in down and distance situations, allowing defenses like Washington's to pin their ears back and pressure aggressively. There's a personal element in Kinlaw's renaissance that cannot be ignored. Throughout the offseason, doubts about his fitness and commitment were constant. Analysts question whether Peters had made a mistake investing significant resources in a player with an injury history. Some fans express concern about repeating past mistakes with risky contracts. Kinlaw clearly heard those critiques and used them as motivation. His fitness on Sunday was evident. He showed no signs of fatigue or limitations, maintained consistency throughout the game, and executed with the explosiveness that originally made him a first-round selection. This narrative of personal redemption adds an emotional dimension that can be sustainable throughout the season. Kinlaw has everything to gain by proving he can return to elite form, and that intrinsic motivation is often more powerful than any external incentive. If Kinlaw's debut is indicative of what's to come, Washington has potential for one of the league's best defenses. The combination of effectively stopping the run while generating consistent pressure is the classic formula for successful playoff defenses. The next test will be Green Bay on Thursday night. The Packers have a solid offensive line and a diverse running scheme with multiple capable backs. If Kinlaw can replicate his dominance against a better prepared and more personnel-equipped opponent, it will confirm his performance against the Giants was no fluke. More importantly, health will be the determining factor. Kinlaw has shown that when healthy, he can be dominant. The key will be maintaining that health through the rigors of a full 17-game season plus potential. When Adam Peters pulled off the trade to bring Deebo Samuel for only a draft 5th-round pick, the initial reaction was surprise mixed with skepticism. Samuel was coming off a frustrating season in San Francisco, where his role had been reduced, and his future with the team was uncertain. Criticisms about his fitness and commitment had followed the receiver throughout the offseason, but Peters identified an opportunity that other general managers couldn't see. It wasn't just about talent. Everyone knew Samuel had elite skills when motivated and fit. It was about systematic fit and mutual need. Washington desperately needed a versatile receiver to complement Terry McLaurin, while Samuel needed a change of scenery to revitalize his career. The minimal cost of the trade also allowed financial flexibility. Peters didn't have to commit significant draft resources or cap space, meaning if the experiment didn't work, the consequences would be minimal. But if it worked, as is proving early, it would be one of the biggest steals in recent free agency years. What makes Samuel's acquisition so brilliant is how his skill set perfectly aligns with Cliff Kingsbury's offensive philosophy. Kingsbury has consistently been one of the NFL's most creative offensive coordinators, specializing in finding unique ways to use available talent. Samuel isn't just a traditional receiver. His ability to run routes from multiple positions, carry the ball from the backfield, and even occasionally throw passes gives Kingsbury options that simply didn't previously exist in Washington. This versatility was immediately evident in the debut against the Giants. Samuel's 7 receptions on 10 targets for 77 yards show that Daniels already trusts him as a reliable option. But his 19-yard rushing touchdown revealed the additional dimension he brings to the offense. That specific play, where he took a direct handoff and cut outside before accelerating to the corner of the end zone, is exactly the kind of creativity that can give defenses nightmares during weekly prep. Samuel's presence has immediately transformed the way defenses must prepare to face Washington. Previously, teams could focus their defensive efforts on stopping Terry McLaurin and force other receivers to win individual matchups. That strategy is no longer viable. Against the Giants, it was evident that New York had prepared specifically to limit McLaurin with consistent double coverage. In previous seasons, that strategy would have devastated Washington's offense. But with Samuel operating from multiple positions and creating constant threats, McLaurin could operate more effectively even with extra attention. Dan Quinn expressed his enthusiasm about this dynamic after the game, specifically noting how Samuel plays aggressive and downhill. Those aren't just descriptions of play style. They are indicators of mindset. Samuel is attacking each opportunity with the urgency of someone with something to prove. Quinn's post-game comments reveal much about how the organization views Samuel's future with the team. When Quinn says, "He's a lot of fun to coach," and we've seen that film, you know what that looks like. He's talking about a player that not only fits the system, but can elevate it to another level. The specific reference to the rushing touchdown as quintessential him is particularly significant. Quinn acknowledges that Samuel hasn't lost the skills that made him an elite threat in San Francisco. The change of scenery and renewed motivation have returned the player who was all-pro in his best moments. Perhaps more importantly, Quinn mentioned that we left some plays on the field, implying that what we saw against the Giants was just a fraction of Samuel's full potential in this system. As he develops more chemistry with Daniels and fully integrates into all of Kingsbury's offensive concepts, his impact should increase significantly. One legitimate concern before the season was how a rookie quarterback like Daniels would develop timing and confidence with a veteran receiver like Samuel. The early signs are extremely promising. The 10 opportunities Daniels targeted, Samuel represented immediate confidence that typically takes weeks or months to develop. Daniels' accuracy on short and intermediate routes complements perfectly with Samuel's ability to gain separation quickly after the catch. Several of Samuel's receptions against the Giants showcased his characteristic ability to turn routine catches into significant gains through yards after the catch. This early chemistry suggests Daniels sees Samuel as more than just a safety option. Many times during the game, Daniels looked for Samuel in critical third down conversion situations, indicating a level of trust usually reserved for receivers quarterbacks have worked with for full seasons. Samuel's versatility creates unique problems for defensive coordinators that go beyond just adding another threat on the field. His ability to line up as an outside receiver, slot receiver, wing back, and even traditional tailback means defenses can't use his pre-snap alignment to completely predict what type of play coming. This unpredictability is especially valuable in red zone situations where limited space usually favors defenses that can predict offensive concepts. Samuel's rushing touchdown came from a formation that seemed to suggest a pass, but resulted in an explosive run the Giants defense clearly didn't anticipate. As the season progresses, and Kingsbury adds more wrinkles to the playbook, this versatility will become even more valuable. Teams will have to dedicate significant prep time each week just to catalog all the different ways Washington can use Samuel. time they can't spend preparing for other threats, contrary to concerns that Samuel might compete directly with McLaurin for targets. His presence acts as a force multiplier for the entire receiving unit. McLaurin is immediately benefiting from having less defensive attention, while receivers like Jahan Dotson and Luke McCaffrey have more opportunities in favorable matchups. This more balanced distribution of targets also benefits Daniels, who now has multiple reliable options in any down and distance situation. Instead of feeling pressured to force passes to McLaurin in double coverage, he can take what the defense gives and trust Samuel or other receivers to plays. The ripple effect extends to the ground game too, with defenses having to respect the threat of Samuel both receiving and rushing. There are fewer players in the box to stop traditional runners like Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. If the performance against the Giants is indicative of Samuel's full potential in this system, Washington could have one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFC. The combination of Daniels' accuracy, McLaurin's reliability, Samuel's versatility, and Kingsbury's creativity creates possibilities that go far beyond what the team could execute in recent seasons. The next test against Green Bay will be particularly telling. The Packers have a more experienced and better coordinated defense than the Giants, and will have had a full week to study film and prepare specifically for Samuel trends. If he can maintain his effectiveness against more prepared opposition, it will confirm his resurgence is sustainable beyond individual stats. Samuel's true value can be measured in how he raises the ceiling of the entire offense. Washington didn't just add another receiver, they added a completely new dimension that can change the way teams must prepare defensively in an era where many professional athletes prefer to give politically correct responses that don't offend anyone or reveal anything substantial. Jaden Daniels' post-game statements were refreshingly direct and revealing. Following a comfortable 21-6 victory over the Giants, Daniels didn't celebrate or settle for the result. Instead, he offered an honest and critical assessment of the offensive performance. "We were careless, but it's always better to come out with a win than a loss. So we'll learn from it," Daniels declared immediately after the game. That phrase contains multiple layers of mental maturity that go far beyond what we typically hear from rookie quarterbacks in their first regular season games. First, Daniels specifically acknowledged the deficiencies without making excuses. He didn't blame the offensive line for inconsistent protection, didn't point out receiver drops, didn't mention the natural debut nerves. He merely admitted that the collective performance wasn't enough and there was work to be done. Second, he maintained perspective by acknowledging that winning is most important, but without using that win to justify mediocrity. That's a very fine line many veteran quarterbacks struggle to walk effectively. What really distinguished Daniels' statements was his detailed analysis of specific game situations, particularly his explanation of why Terry McLaurin had limited receiving numbers. Instead of offering vague generalities, Daniels demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of defensive concepts and how they impacted the offensive execution. The timing was there. They were doubling Terry a lot, justifiably. He's earned that right in this league, so other guys stepped up and made plays, Daniels explained. This response reveals multiple levels of mental processing extraordinary for a quarterback in his first professional game. Daniels had clearly identified pre-snap when the Giants were showing double coverage on McLaurin. More impressively, he had adjusted his post-snap reads to take advantage of the opportunities those coverages created for other receivers. That's veteran quarterback brain function, not a rookie's. His specific reference to McLaurin's curl route on third conversion shows he was mentally cataloging specific situations during the game. When the plays were there for Terry to show up, like that third conversion on the short curl route, he made the play and we kept the chains moving. That's photographic memory tactically applied, one of the most impressive qualities shown. In Daniels' statement was his ability to publicly protect his teammates while maintaining high standards. His handling of questions about McLaurin was masterful from a room chemistry perspective. Daniels could have easily pointed out that McLaurin only had 2 receptions for 27 yards, letting the numbers speak for themselves. Instead, he provided context explaining why those numbers didn't reflect a deficiency in McLaurin. Simultaneously, he praised other receivers for stepping up and making plays, without diminishing McLaurin's importance to the offense. This is mature quarterback leadership. Daniels understood that publicly criticizing McLaurin, even indirectly, could create tension in the locker room. But he also understood he couldn't completely ignore questions about performance. His solution was to educate the media about the tactical realities of the game while reinforcing confidence in all his receivers. Daniels' statements also revealed important aspects about his developing relationships with different groups within the team. His specific enthusiasm about Jakery, Krosky, Merritt, and Debo Samuel's performances showed a quarterback genuinely excited for his teammates' success. They showed up. They made plays that needed to be made, and I'm super excited to have them on our team. He declared about the newcomers who scored rushing touchdowns. That language, super excited to have them, isn't corporate rhetoric. It's genuine enthusiasm that players can feel and contributes to building team chemistry. The way Daniels spoke about Samuel specifically suggests he already sees the veteran receiver as a centerpiece of the offense moving forward. Even though Samuel had only been with the team for a few months, Daniels spoke of him with the kind of confidence that usually takes seasons to develop. Perhaps the most promising aspect of Daniels' statements was his clear focus on improvement rather than celebration. For many rookie quarterbacks, completing their first regular season game without interceptions and with a win would be enough to feel satisfied. Daniels clearly operates with higher standards. His insistence that they were careless, despite comfortably winning, indicates a quarterback who won't settle for mediocrity even when the results are positive. That mindset is essential for long-term development and suggests Daniels has the kind of internal drive that characterizes elite quarterbacks. The promise to learn from it also indicates Daniels is treating each experience as an educational opportunity. Instead of simply moving on to the next game, he's actively processing current performance, lessons to apply in the future. To fully appreciate the importance of Daniels' statements, it's helpful to compare them to typical rookie quarterback debuts. Most tend to be overwhelmed by the occasion and focus primarily on processing the emotional experience rather than analyzing technical performance. Daniels demonstrated an ability to compartmentalize the emotion of the moment and focus on objective evaluation. That's a skill many veteran quarterbacks never fully develop. And seeing it in a rookie is extraordinarily promising for future development. His specific references to game situations also starkly contrast with typical rookie responses, which tend to speak in generalities because they are struggling to process the speed and complexity of the perfect game. Daniels was clearly thinking the game at full speed. Daniels' statements set clear expectations for what's ahead against Green Bay on Thursday night. His honesty about the deficiencies against the Giants indicates he and the offense have identified specific areas for improvement to work on during short week preparation. His confidence in discussing tactical concepts also suggests he's ready for more complex game plans against more sophisticated offenses. The Packers present different challenges from the Giants, particularly in terms of pressure packages and coverage sizes. How Daniels handles those challenges, both on the field and in his post-game statements, will provide more insight about his readiness to be the franchise quarterback Washington desperately needs. Beyond the tactical implications, Daniels' statements revealed the beginnings of his identity as a team leader. His willingness to be performance critical while maintaining positivity about personnel suggests a leadership approach that can be effective with different types of personalities. Some quarterbacks lead through vocal intensity, others through silent example. Daniels is showing early signs of a hybrid approach that combines direct honesty with emotional support. That combination can be particularly effective with a young roster needing both direction and confidence building. His public recognition of teammates' contributions also sets a precedent for giving credit where it's due, which is essential for maintaining locker room harmony through the inevitable ups and downs of a full season. The foundation Daniels is establishing through his early communication patterns could be just as important for long-term success as his on-field development. Quarterbacks who can effectively manage both performance expectations and team relationships tend to have more successful and sustained careers.